Right, my name is Bethany Sollereder, and I'm a student at Regent College in Canada, where I've done my master's degree in Christian studies, looking at the problem of evolution and the problem of evil. I've been studying this for some time now, and what really attracted me to this in the first place was that I kept encountering Christians who said, well, the science of evolution is great, but the real problem that I encounter is that it means death came before the fall. It means that things like pain and suffering and earthquakes were not a result of Adam's sin in the garden, but instead they were part of how God created the earth. And so, they're just saying, I'd love to accept evolution, but theologically I don't know what to do with this. And so I started looking at it and trying to figure out what can we learn from these things? Why might have God created through an evolutionary process like this? And as I was looking, I found out some pretty interesting things. Let's take pain as an example. Most of us would like to live without pain. We don't like pain. We take our aspirin or Tylenol faithfully to get rid of it. And yet pain is so beneficial to life. If you wanted to ask, what does a world without pain look like? It looks like having leprosy. Leprosy is actually a disease that invades your body's pain nerves and kills them. And so that's all it does, is it kills your pain nerves, and all the subsequent damage that we associate with leprosy, things like, fingers falling off and, big sores and that kind of thing, doesn't come from the leprosy itself. It comes from not feeling pain. And so if we were to even look at Jesus healing lepers, if in fact they had real leprosy and not simply a skin disease, which they called leprosy, if some of these lepers had real leprosy, Jesus in healing them is restoring their ability to feel pain, which is a very different way of thinking about healing than we tend to usually associate it with, the taking away of pain. So I would argue that pain is actually a very good part of God's creation, meant for us to live well. Another example that we could look at is death. How do we deal with death before the fall? Isn't death a result of divine judgment on sin? Well, again, if you ask, what does a world without death look like? There's only one example that we have in nature of what deathlessness is like, and that's cancer. Part of the problem with cancer cells is that they reproduce without any limit. You can kill them, but they would never die on their own. They just reproduce and reproduce and reproduce. And we can see the sort of havoc that wreaks on human bodies. If in fact humans were immortal, we would be the cancer of the earth. And so, again, we have to be careful here and say that, death with sin is problematic, but death in itself is simply a doorway into the new life that God calls us forward to. And I think that in the lives of the saints and the martyrs, we get a taste for what that was like. We see these people who approach death with great joy and acceptance, looking forward to the new life God has prepared. And I think even before the fall, that was always God's intention for death.
Okay.